Hi, welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to D&D. I am your host, 3 attacks per action, Tristan. To my right, we have roll for initiative, Sam. And to my left, we have 30 feet of movement, Brandon.
That's average.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. That's not... Hold on. How come you got the best thing?
Are you saying that I don't get 3 attacks per action, Brandon? Because I could prove that right now.
All right, roll for initiative.
I'm going to move my 30 feet away.
Oh, wait, I get an opportunity attack.
Oh, no!
And these are all things we are going to be talking about today, because today we are talking about combat as a general part of D&D. In D&D, there's 2 things that you do, roleplay and combat.
Pretty much.
Down, if you boil it really
Down to its base mechanics.
Yes, there's 2 things to do, roleplay and combat. Now, we've talked about roleplay quite extensively in a number of different ways, and when we're talking about building characters and how to roleplay and how far you play with roleplay. Combat is something that there will probably be several episodes about combat, or at least talking about more and more about combat. But today we're going to be kind of just talking about like the general overview of combat, of like how it kind of works.
How to combat. Welcome, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen.
Step 1, bap them.
Well, no.
Step 1, find someone you want to fight.
That's probably more
Step
accurate.
2, bap them.
Close.
We're getting there. You're getting closer. one of these times you're going to be right.
Okay, so we'll get to some of the other variances, but with most combat, everything starts with, like with Sam, is roll initiative. Now, Brandon, explain to us what initiative kind of is.
Initiative is, in the most watered down sense, who gets to act when in an order.
Right.
From highest to lowest. Every single character will always have an initiative bonus. Or, say, I don't even know how you can get a negative, but I've seen it. Yeah. So you could technically have a minus on initiative. It's real bad. But you will roll your 20-sided die. That number plus your initiative bonus puts your initiative amount. And then you look at that to everyone else, and your DM should have a list of initiative for you guys and what you rolled and the enemies. And then you go through and you put that into an order of who goes first, who goes last. And that is called a round. A round is first player to last player, or first combatant to last combatant.
Right, whether that's player, enemy,
environment, layer.
Yeah, stuff like that. So that is initiative. This is where you'll see most common roll for initiative. And again, as with most things in D&D, it does involve the D20 plus something on your sheet, or if you're using something like D&D Beyond, it's all on there. And this is where you'll also see where you get stuff like advantage or
disadvantage, which means if you have advantage on initiative, you get to roll twice, take the higher of the 2. Disadvantage, twice, take the lower of the 2. If you have disadvantage on initiative, something's gone wrong.
It may be an effect of something else.
Yeah.
So now, with everyone, the list of everyone is called a round. When everyone goes, it's called a round. Now, in each of those, it's called a turn. Now, Sam, what are the main things that happen in a turn?
So, there are a couple things that happen during a turn. First one's movement. So, you're, like Brandon's 30 feet, everybody has a base movement, a walking speed. That is how many feet you can move per round. Second one is an action. Now, this is typically either you cast a spell, or you are going to bap somebody, or maybe you want, if you're a rogue, you can pull a lever or use an item. That is an action. And then there is a bonus action. A bonus action can be something like, if you have a certain spell that has a casting time of a bonus action, or maybe you use an offhand attack as a bonus action, depending on your class. So those are kind of the basic things that happen. Movement, action, bonus action.
Okay.
And talking is free.
Talking
on your turn.
And this is where you'll probably see where some DMs have different rules for different things, or different things count as an action or a bonus action.
Some people will have drinking a potion be an entire action since you are using an item. Some people, like myself, do a bonus action as a potion because you're kind of you only need one hand to stick into the bag, rip the cork off, and go with it. You can still be like, how about you?
Right. To give kind of context to that, how long is a turn in the time frame of combat?
6 seconds?
It is 6 seconds long. So everything you have to imagine, it could take 5 minutes to figure out what you actually do on your turn. But in game, 6 seconds. In 6 seconds, you will move your movement, which base 30. You will attack if you attack once, and you can use a bonus action and talk. That's 6 seconds. So you got to think about it as a fluid action. Someone's running up, drawing their sword, hitting somebody, casting if they are ability a bonus action, and yelling at a friend.
Right.
Yeah.
All of that happens in the same time, and some people are like, well, why is talking a free action? Because I can punch someone and go, hey, go do that,
Yeah.
and continue to punch them.
The only thing where I would counter that would be obviously spellcasters if you have a verbal component, but still, you can probably still say, like, bippity boppity boo, hey, would you get that for me? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
6
So
seconds.
it should be noted that if you are going to try and talk your free action talk, you're going to want to keep it to about 6 seconds.
You don't want to be able
You're
to...
not going to be able to have a whole conversation with someone else during your turn, and it makes sense. You're going to end up making your action your conversation.
So, yeah, if you think about in combat, all of this is happening at the same time. It's just because it's a game and it's broken down as such.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening in segments. But you have to imagine we're doing something. You're backstabbing somebody. You're punching someone in the face. And I'm casting a spell. All in the same 6 seconds. A round
Right.
is the 6 seconds.
Right.
So...
yeah.
It will... Everything's happening very quickly.
It
So,
just doesn't feel like that.
Right. So to
Actually.
clarify, it's the round that is 6 seconds. Each turn is happening within that 6 seconds.
Because they're all technically going
happening at once.
At the same
Yes.
time, because if something lasts for a minute, like a spell lasts for a minute, that is 10 rounds.
Right.
Because a round is 6 seconds, everything's happening at the same time. It'd be really cool if there was a way to show you, but no one's figured out how to do that in real time yet. So, so you need to figure out what you're gonna do that makes sense within 6 seconds. You can, like I said, you can't do a long soliloquy. You
Right.
can't do multiple pick things up because that would be a few seconds to pick something up, and then so things like that. And
Right.
with movement, it should be noted, if you are using a grid, if you're using a system to mark where you're moving, it is based on a 5-foot square. So
Right.
every square is 5 feet. So that's important to know. If you're not using a grid, or you're using Roll20, or you're using your own imagination, if you imagine a single move is 5 feet, and you can do that on a turn up to your movement as your movement action. or
Right, and
movement
that's where,
phase.
as a DM, you would decide how far something is. Like, you move 30 feet, how far are you?
If you're not using a grid.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it should also be noted that the things that happen in your turn, the movement, the bonus action, and the action, they don't have to go in a specific order.
Yeah.
You can do your movement first, you can do your movement middle, you can do your movement last. You can do your bonus action first, middle, last. You can do your action first, middle,
Right.
last.
But-
Obviously, play it smart, though. For example, if you are a caster, like let's say that you're a warlock Pact of the Blade, and you do something that, like Green Flame Blade, you want to use that on your sword, your Pact weapon, you might want to do that first, as, you know,
Instead of attacking your
Instead of-
action and then...
yeah.
Right, or if you go into battle as a barbarian, you would like to probably rage first versus everything else, then
Yeah.
rage.
And you are not allowed. You're not allowed to take a bonus action and turn it into an action, and vice versa. They are different for that reason.
Right.
I cannot do a spell that is a bonus action as an action and do something else. I don't know why you would, but you can't.
Right, unless you run into things where, like, because even like casting a spell is usually seen as an action, and only there's a few select things where you can do a cantrip as a bonus action.
Well, that's a specific...
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there are specific features and certain abilities gifted by classes that might change and tweak
But
those.
we're talking
Right.
static if
But-
you're not telling it that.
Right.
But the
You-
base is
You are going to
those.
run into things that will change that. For example, no matter how many attacks you have, it is per action.
It's not.
Right.
You can't just do more.
Right.
It's per action.
It's not
Right.
like, well, I get 2 attacks per action. Why does that mean I get 2 actions? No, you choose your 1 action to do attacks at multiple points.
Right.
Unless you run into something like second. No, it's not second wind. It's
Action surge gives you the ability to do another one, and then haste gives you another one.
Yes.
So haste and action surge are the easiest ways to understand if you're going to do more attacks. It's through those.
Right.
I can't just say, well, I'm going to do this action and it allows me to do this attack twice. That's
Right.
not how that works.
It's also like if you're a spellcaster, for example, but let's say you're multi-class, like I don't know, fighter wizard. I don't know why.
Eldritch Knight exists, but sure.
So if you get 2 attacks per action when you're a fighter, but that doesn't mean that you can cast 2 spells because spell would count as an action.
Because they're different
Right.
things. An attack action, a spell action, use an item action. These are all. That's why I was saying action after it. It's not part of an action. It is your entire action.
Right.
So that's the easiest way to think about
Right.
that.
So there's a number of different ways that modify those things. But that's what it really boils down to. Combat I guess we should go talk about how combat ends. It ends in a number of different ways.
The easiest way is everyone's dead.
Yes.
Second easiest way. Everybody else is dead.
Your team died.
Another easy way. Someone runs away.
And
Whether
yeah,
it's
people-
you or them.
Running away. So those are the easiest 3 to boil
Or
it down.
if you're
Right.
really suave, you can sort of...
Talk your way out.
Right. If
Yeah,
you use
yeah.
those 6 seconds and then your action becomes to, roll for persuasion or roll
Right.
for
Because
intimidation and
that's the
stuff like
thing
that.
is if you're trying to do something like that, it's generally your action to do
Right.
so.
Right.
Unless your DM is nice and will say, well, you talked, so there's that.
Right.
What else do you want to do? Most are not going to let you because if you're able to make a check and do an action and a bonus action, that's when you can start to do things that can compound later.
I think
into
the
more...
only case where that's not a thing is a rogue, because rogues can do a bonus action to use an item.
To use an action
Or
and
you do
disengage.
it.
So there's a few things that allow you to do different actions, and there's
Right.
there's like we said, there's attack, spell, item, disengage, hide, dodge.
Yeah.
So I guess before we go further into end of combat, there is something that we kind of missed was reactions.
Yes.
That is not on your turn. A
That is-
reaction takes place on somebody else's turn.
Right. So for example, this is where if somebody hits you and you're a tiefling or you have the spell Hellish Rebuke,
You can use your
reaction
to do it back.
Now, a reaction only happens once per player per round. You, as a player, will only get 1 reaction per round.
Same with the enemies, unless they are a specific creature that has different abilities.
Right.
But most things are only going to be able to react once.
Right.
So choosing your reaction when is very important. Don't just willy-nilly do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this is where you can either, as a reaction, lesser the amount of a big hit. You could retaliate, essentially. Or
You can nullify a spell. As
nullify a
counter
spell. Yes.
Yeah.
You can hit someone and use your feet so they stop moving.
Yes.
So reactions are very important. Like I said, you only get 1.
Yes.
Right.
There's no magical way to get more reactions. There's not a way.
Yeah.
Now, there is something that's somewhat like a reaction that happens as many times as the situation allow, and that is an attack of opportunity.
No, it's a reaction.
That's a reaction.
You only get that, like,
Yeah,
no
once.
matter how many times people move
Yeah.
out of here?
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess we just never encountered it enough.
No one's ever, generally, if someone tries to run away from you, you normally kill them or
Right,
no
okay.
one goes near you.
So, an opportunity attack. I guess we just never encountered it.
No,
Like
no,
you said,
no.
People usually die.
So, so an attack of opportunity is considered a reaction.
So if
Okay.
I am next to him in the 5-foot area and then I go, peace, buddy, if I'm not using a disengage action or bonus action, he gets to go, now hold on, friend.
And I get an opportunity attack.
So you're pretty much hitting their back. If you think about it, as they're turning and running, you're hitting their back. Nothing special happens from that, but it's the easiest way
It's
to
just
think
an
about
attack.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where certain things like Sentinel,
Yes.
the feet, when you do an opportunity attack and you hit, their speed becomes 0, so they do not move. Because the opportunity attack happens as soon as they decide and begin to move. So they are not away from you, they are turning to move, and then you hit them.
Now, that's when they leave your essentially your hit circle.
Your range, and your range, it's melee. There's no attack of opportunity for range because that would be busted.
Right.
You're real nice for spellcasters.
Right. So you can do, speaking of spell, I'll get to that. You can do, if it's only 5 foot, unless you're using a pole arm or something like a lance or a halberd that has a 10 foot, and then
Right.
that's your range. But if you take Warcaster,
Yes.
you're able to do basic spells as a reaction when people leave.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're a Warcaster, or you're a spellcaster and you want to be able to hit things as they run away from you, which, why are you next to things? So why are they running from you?
Yeah.
But I realize that you're the one of those.
Yeah, so that is a thing that can happen. So you need to plan what you take if your DM allows feats. Not everyone does. It's a chosen rule. It's a real rule, but it's a chosen rule.
Right.
So planning that out if that's a thing. which will hopefully, after enough actions, bonus actions, movements, reactions, free talking, and doing whatever you need to do, you get to the end of combat.
Right. So, as we talked about when it comes to end of combat, death is a thing, whether it's of yourself or your enemies or your other players. So, when it's another character, when it's an enemy, they can still, depending on your DM and the situation, they will still say it reacts the same way as a player.
If they're generally monsters, don't normally get those unless your DM is trying to play super balanced. Right. Monsters generally, when you knock them down to 0, they're dead because
unless you otherwise specify.
Yes. So most players, whenever you say, "Oh, you hit them to 0, how do you want to do it?" They say, "I cut the head off." Yeah, there's no death count for that.
Right. This is where you'll see other players go, "Can I try and knock him unconscious?" And then as a DM, you make the decision of like, "Well, you hit him pretty hard." No.
So you hit him and you did. You say you need to let him know before you roll that damage.
Yeah.
So I guess to help clarify this, let's talk about what happens when a player is reduced to 0 hit points in a battle.
You go.
Yes.
You are considered at 0 hit points unconscious.
Which that will end many effects, many spells, many things. If you're holding concentration and you go unconscious, concentration's over. The spell ends.
If you're raging and hit 0, you're no longer raging.
Until you hit a certain level.
Yes.
It goes forever.
Then it goes forever.
It ends if you have an ability that lasts for so many minutes. As soon as you go unconscious, it's over.
Right.
Yeah. So all of these things will specify. So you don't need to be like, does this end? It will tell you when it ends. If they'll say unconscious or so many feet or it does another thing.
Right.
So, but that will end. So any cool thing you're trying to give, like I hasted Tristan and I go out.
That haste is gone.
Which means you're stuck for a turn.
Yes.
Because you take a single round break.
Yep.
After you're so exhausted. So if someone's being smart and goes, he's casting haste, let's knock him out. I get knocked out. Tristan stops for a turn.
Yes.
Right.
So now you're unconscious.
What do you do?
So there are several things that your friends could possibly do.
If they care.
To help you.
Let's start with what you do.
But what you do is when it's your turn in combat, you're going to roll a d20. And this is going to decide a success or a failure.
This is what is it called?
Death saves.
Death saves.
Now, in general, most people abide by 3 successes or 3 failures.
Yay.
So, if you roll above a 10, that's a success. If you roll below a 10, that's a failure.
And then if you roll a 20, that's 2 success. If you roll a 1, that's 2 failures. So what's really scary is if you fail once, succeed once, and then you roll that 1. If you roll that 1...
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, someone can bring me back. Your character has officially died.
Yes.
They're dead.
3 death saving throws equal a death.
It doesn't have to be in a row. You could do 1 fail, 2 success, 2 fail.
Yeah.
Or you can do 1, 2, 3 fail. Whatever hits first.
Right.
Yeah. Now, there are other ways to die.
Yes.
One of those ways is if somebody hits you so hard that, let's say you start with 100 hit points. Somebody hits you so hard they knock you below negative 100 hit points. That is an instant death.
I deal 200 in a single hit. You're instantly, no saves. Oh, just easy way to put it, you're obliterated.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Yes.
There's no
Somebody
saves.
hits you for that. If Tiamat comes up and bitch slaps you that hard
for 200 damage,
you're dead.
So it just needs to go max and deal enough to deal your max.
Yeah.
So that's in the same fell swoop.
Yes.
Now let's say Tristan's down and I'm a bad guy and I'm a smart bad guy.
And you want to poke him with your poke.
And I just go over there. You still have to hit, so I have to beat his AC, but you don't have your shield on you anymore because you drop it when you fall unconscious.
No, it's right here.
So
it just lays across you. Well, I guess I'll hit you in the face.
So you just stab, and that counts for an instant, because it's a critical hit. It counts for a 2 death. So let's say they already failed once on their turn, and the bad guy goes, "Oh, I'm just gonna kill it." It's dead.
Yeah.
No saves, no reactions. You're dead.
It should also be mentioned that saves, you automatically fail most saves.
So if I deck save and there's an explosion,
if you are unconscious, you cannot make a deck save because you are not moving. You have no way to
hit.
Now,
you're about to just get ragdolled.
I think the only one that doesn't count for would be Constitution.
No, they're all
Or
failed.
is it
All saves. You have no way to fortify yourself. You're not breathing.
Gotcha.
You are unconscious and your body's attempting to restart. If someone's doing an AoE save and someone's down If they already have one failure, they're probably
going
to
to die.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're down and you already have a failure and somebody casts fireball,
most likely based on your position.
yeah, you're probably going to die.
We'll talk more about death, I think, in another episode when we talk more about dealing with player death.
But there's a bunch of ways to die.
Yeah, death is an option in combat. Now, with some DMs, you may find, especially at really low levels, I know you did this.
I was kind.
You were kind, and Sam, you've been kind. If you were, there's plot armor. And again, this depends on the DM, it depends on the story, it depends on how it's run.
Some don't care about your feelings.
Some don't care about your feelings, or you'll even have players that go, if I die, I die, it's fine. Yeah. So you may run into things like plot armor, or, things like that where it changes that outcome.
Your DM will wave and fudge some rolls and work his behind-the-scene magic to have you be on the brink. You're on the cusps of dying, and then...
Or you have,
you don't.
Right, or your DM's like, oh, your deity has saved you.
Something like that. Or an NPC who's watching the battle does something. There are many ways that your DM, if they want, can spare you.
Yes.
Or, if your friends are good and you have some healer or potions on you or on them, they can help you. Right. So, before we get to them helping you, let's say you succeeded your 3 death saving throws.
Yes.
You are now stabilized. You have 0 hit points. You are not awake. You are unconscious and breathing, but on the ground. Let that be clear.
Right.
Yeah.
You're no longer in danger of immediately dying if combat is over.
You're still unconscious, which means anyone who comes over has advantage to try and kill you. You're at 0 hit points that will knock you back into death saving throws.
Right.
Yes.
So generally when someone is stabilized, most people go, we're going to move them off the battlefield.
Yes.
But let's say before you get stabilized, you have a nice cleric.
Mm-hmm. Or someone's got a potion bottle.
Cleric.
Or say if someone's got a potion and they cast or give you any sort of healing. Death saves are over. You are now up whatever that hit points is. You are awake. You're still on the ground. But you are awake, alive, and have that amount of hit points, even if it's 1.
Yep.
Now, just as a side note, when it comes to movement, getting up from prone
Is half of your movement.
is half of your movement.
So you can't just hop up and go unless you have abilities that let you ignore that.
Right.
So if you're trying to run, you best figure out which way you're going, and that's going to keep you the safest longest.
Right. So that's kind of like a quick rundown of the basics of what you'll see in combat. Again, this is where certain classes will give you, for example, actions will give you a certain number of hits, depending on your class. Like barbarians get 2.
Fighters get the most.
Fighters get the most.
And then monks. Because they have the ability to use bonus action to hit more.
Yes. So again, just to remember, if an attack does not equal an action equals all attacks. So you can't do something like, well, I have 3 attacks. Can I hit once and then do something else? No. It's like when you're hitting, it's like a 1-2. It's your decision to make that hit as a 1-2.
And you can't save hits. You can't say, I use my action to attack, then I'm going to move and can finish that. No. If you pick the attack action, you either hit everything that you can around you, or you hit the one thing, and you can't stash those. Yeah. So, let's say you're one person, you're only near one person, you get 3 attacks, and you knock them out in the first one. Mm-hmm. 2 gone. You can't save those. But
unless your DM is kind.
Unless your DM is very nice, which, no. But let's say Tristan's attacking Sammy and I. 1, 2, 3. That's fair because you're able to attack anything within your range.
Right.
They don't have to be a target. It's anything within range of the attacks.
Yeah. I think the last thing I want to touch on real quick is readied actions.
Yes, that's a good one to talk about.
Very confusing.
Readied actions are, let's say you want to do an action based off of a specific event. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say I'm a spellcaster and we're in a curved tunnel, and I'm going to say, I want to ready fireball for the first thing that comes through that tunnel.
You said that.
Yes.
I have said that.
The DM has now locked that in. You cannot change it.
Yep.
The first thing that comes around, you'll notice, It's a gnome. You didn't care what it was.
Yep.
You blow up a gnome.
Hey, guess what?
Hey, is it
Fireball
you
happens.
guys? Oh, goodness gracious.
Now, there are other things. For example, as a barbarian, you can say, okay, I'm going to ready action the first thing that comes within 5 feet, or the first enemy, if you want to be
If you want to be
When
specific.
it comes to ready actions, the key thing, especially with more strict DMs,
Right.
be specific with your
Yes,
wording.
so if there's, like, let's say there's a kobold 10 feet away, or 20 feet away. If he comes within 5 feet, I want to use my action to bap him with the thing. That's your ready action.
Right.
And the DM will allow you to say, I want to hit the first enemy. Well, you're in a dungeon, you don't know who's down here, so you wouldn't know what's enemy or not unless it's obvious.
Of course, there's a
Right.
lot of counter arguments that could be made around the specific enemy turn. That's between you and your DM. You work
Yeah.
that out on your own. But the thing with the ready action is it allows you to prepare for specific events. Now, the thing about a ready action is it doesn't necessarily happen on your turn, because usually they are triggered by somebody else doing something.
Right.
And so that will happen, that you're using your action to do that. So you can't do something, I can't hit and then go, I ready action.
Right.
You're taking that action and pausing it for something to happen. Now, let's say it doesn't happen between when you readied it and your next go.
It's gone.
It's gone. You don't get another one.
If you ready action a spell, that spell is now spent
it-
and used and gone.
Which is the worst thing you can. I'm going to hold this spell until this happens. It doesn't happen.
Right.
The casting time is over.
Yep.
The spell then considers to fizzle, and it is gone. You mark that spell slot down. You casted it. You've put. If you think about it, I have put the arcane ball of energy here. I've already summoned it. Whatever spell it is, I'm holding it, and then whenever it happens, I release it. The magical energy has already been put down into the universe. Whether you actually cast it or it fizzles to nothing,
Right.
you have spent your magic to do it.
All right.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be ready actions. Again, always be very specific with those, and mindful of.
Think ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that we kind of want to briefly touch on is surprise rounds.
Surprise!
This is something that usually happens before full-on combat.
And this happens whenever the players or enemies
Yes.
get the drop on somebody. So,
Yes.
let's say you guys are all sleeping, and
Taking naps.
you're in a tree line, and somebody literally drops down in the middle of your encampment. You're surprised. There's no way around that. You're surprised.
You were really surprised.
Surprise.
You were
Unless specified otherwise.
Unless you have the ability that as long as you're awake, you can't be surprised.
Right.
You can be surprised if you are asleep.
Yes.
You're not all knowing. So the enemy would then get the surprise on you. That's the easy way to put it. Now the surprised condition means your turn is spent. There are no movement, bonus actions, or actions. Your turn is being surprised.
And no reactions.
And no reactions. You cannot, if someone comes down to you and surprise, I'm first, I hit you, that happens. But
Yeah.
even with surprise happening, it does not give a free round. Initiative still happens, and whoever goes is whoever goes. So let's say the enemy surprises you, but you go first in initiative and they don't. Your surprise will end. You don't get a reaction, but it will end once, and then you're back into it.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a magical initiative happens after. It happens right then and there. But everyone who is surprised, turn is skipped,
Or maybe it's a weird situation where half the party's surprised, but the other half isn't.
which is perfectly
Right.
fine.
Or like if you have someone doing a watch while everyone's sleeping. This is where this
Somebody gets an arrow to their lung and they're surprised, and everyone's like, "Where's that coming from?"
they're yeah. I mean, and again, you'll see some moments where that
That's never happened to me.
the surprise isn't gonna, like, for example, it's barbarians. I know is at least one class.
You have alert.
You have alert.
Right.
I mean, you can't be surprised as long as you're awake.
So if it's
or
your
calm.
shift, even if you fail
even
that
if
passive,
or even that
perception
regular
check,
perception, someone hops
Yeah.
down behind me and they're
Danger
like, "Ah!"
sense.
and they're like, "Excuse me."
You're like, my danger sense is tingling. There's somebody here.
So-
And
They
especially
will
with
con-
advantage on initiative.
Yeah. So barbarians generally are going to be your easiest one, or if you have a magical item, or if you have the alert feat. There are different ways around that, but surprise is not a free initiative happens after.
Right.
It happens. You go. Now, some things on the player side, like if you are an assassin, roguish archetype,
Yes.
you want the surprise as much as possible because then you get assassinate, which is an amazing thing. So plan.
Yes.
Plan your drops. Now, sometimes you're going to be like, oh, we're totally going to surprise them. And then somebody on their stealth rolls a 1. You're like, oh,
Never
there they are.
Yeah.
Or one of them's a barbarian, and you're like, oh.
We've been found. Things like that will always throw a wrench. So if you don't get the surprise off, be happy that you are, knowing they're there. And you actually get to control what happens. But so that's pretty much combat in a nutshell. There's a lot of things can change.
Yes, you'll find a lot of DMs will have certain things like we've experienced before, like as a group where we all played, where initiative wasn't even rolled. It was just we're just going to go around the table.
It was table order of who was acting when because of the not severity, but the chaos in the area and what was going on. Combat wasn't. It was happening, but it was happening at a pace in a movement that wouldn't be sustainable to put on a board or to put on a tabletop or anything like that. You couldn't do that because everything would be constantly moving.
Right. So you'll just see a couple of different things like when it comes to stuff like initiative. Sometimes it's rolled. Some people are like, we'll just go to the normal number table, or they'll make their own decision
on who's going what based when.
Right. Or you'll find things, for example. I had a thought and it's gone. Never mind.
Combat has a lot going on.
Yes. Or that's what it was. Ties and initiative. There's a number of different ways that DMs will talk about when it comes to ties. From I know our basic knowledge is not really gone into in a lot of rule stuff. Sometimes it comes down to, I know you've talked about, is who has the higher dex, meaning who would be the more agile as far as like getting off to something. That's
how you break ties. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do it. That's how I do it. So let's say you two roll a 17. You're on the same team. Your initiative, your dexterity modifier is the same. Mm-hmm. So everything's the same. Your initiative plus is the same. Your dexterity is the same. You guys will decide who goes first between you, and that's when that locks in order.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how that goes. Now, let's say somebody in initiative matches with somebody, an enemy who's initiative, and they have the same dex. The DM could just go, okay, I'm going to flip a coin, I'm going to decide, or we're going to roll. Right. There's different ways to do that. Because ties are going to happen because there's only so many number of choices. You have a +3 to initiative, I have a +4, you rolled one higher than me, we still match.
Right, so that's where you're going to see some of your, as a DM, they're always going to have their own ways of doing something or decisions to make when it comes to their games.
So just clarify with your DM.
Yes, and that's where, as with a lot of these videos, we always kind of come back to talk to your DM, discuss with them about certain things like how does your combat work, how does your initiative work, how do you do initiative order, even ask them how do you do surprise rounds, how do you do,
what do you consider drinking a potion be?
Right.
Yeah, that's
action,
important.
bonus action. Yeah.
Right, because that's always a
free action. Anyone who lets a potion be a free action is a dangerous DM because they're wild and
you like to live on the edge.
Right.
What are you putting your players through that they need to be able to do that freely?
Right. Or when it comes down to even something like when you're attacking, like if your DM's going to be like, yeah, it's fine. It makes sense for you to go bap, run over, and bap because it would still be the same time frame as long as it's your action.
So it all is very relevant on how your DM is going to play. The rulebook is there, but as the rulebook states, the DM is the final say.
Yes.
So the rules can say one thing, the DM can say another. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
Right.
You let that guy be a DM or that girl be a DM. You let that person. That's it.
Right, and that's something that we've talked about before with table rules and stuff like that, where your DM is the ultimate end goal. If you can't agree with the rule, either A, discuss it with them after the game, or B, find a different DM that you agree a bit more with, which can be a challenge.
Or learn to DM yourself, you lazy.
Yeah, you try and figure out how to do a world. Try and run it.
We need more DMs.
Can you tell which ones are the DMs here? I try to say, let's talk about this. Like, you do it.
You do it, scrub. Get
it. Run your own campaign.
So, as always, talk to your DM, talk to your group in general. And again, that's just kind of the basics of combat. Round, turns. Movement, action, bonus action. Done in any of those orders. And all that.
Reaction on the off chance you get one.
Reaction on the off chance. So I think that's about it for combat for this time. Again, there's always tons of talk about when it comes to combat, spells, weapons.
Oh, we'll get into that when we break down combat more.
Fun stuff. So be sure to look out for that stuff. But until next time, D10tion dismissed.